What is the external agency here? It is a breeze. It's the wind which is making the branches to move. So there is a external agency which is applied to an object so that the object tends to move. Non-uniform motion is a body sweeping unequal distance in equal interval of time. Every body continues to be in the state of rest or of the uniform motion until and unless an external force is compelled on it. That is all about your law of inertia. Hello everyone, I am Brinda, Faculty of Physics, welcoming you all to the session 1 of chapter 5. That is a new chapter which we are dealing with today, that is law of motion. Chapter 5, session 1 and law of motion. Today in this class we are going to study regarding the law of motion. So you all got to know what is motion. Motion is a movement of the object. So how an object moves? Due to the presence of external agency. So when there is an external force which is acting on a body, the body is said to have a motion. So few of the example you can see that a breeze, due to a breeze the branches of a tree is getting bent towards one side. That is also a form of motion. So here the branches are moving. So the motion is said to be of the tree, that is the branches of tree. But what is making the branch to move? That is the external agency. And what is the external agency here? It is a breeze. It's the wind which is making the branches to move. So there is a external agency which is applied to an object so that the object tends to move. Similar way, here you can see a bullock cart. Here a person is an external agency. His movement on the object is said to be moved. He is exerting some force on these animals due to which they tend to move. So this is one of the example for the external agency which is making the object to move. Similarly, you have got two other images there wherein a boy is pushing an object. So there is an external agency. He is an external agent who is pushing the object. So he is exerting a force which is exerted, that force is nothing but the external force which is acted on a body so that it undergoes motion. Similarly, here this image also tells you that a ball is in motion. A ball is an object here and it is being projected by a boy. So boy is exerting a force on the ball so that it is undergoing a motion. The object is undergoing motion and the external force is applied to that object for it to undergo motion. Now, Aristotle, he is a Greek philosopher who held the view that the body is moving. He saw that the body is moving and something is very much necessary for it to move. And that something is nothing but the external force. External force is the one which is required for the body to move. Now, he has told that an external force is required to keep a body in motion. This is the statement which was given by Aristotle. The motion can be uniform motion as well as non-uniform motion. So what is that uniform motion? Uniform motion is a motion which is taken up equally, that the body sweeps equal distance in equal interval of time. That means it is uniform motion. And non-uniform motion is a body sweeping unequal distance in equal interval of time. So here generally we are talking about the motion. So now here Aristotle considered only one part of the motion. The other part he did not consider. So what is that other part? So suppose if an object is allowed to move. Object is allowed to move. Since if this is a plane, the object is allowed to move. So what happens to the object? As per his discussions, it was that external force is required to keep a body in motion. Does it really keep the body in continuous motion, the external force? No. Why? Because the external force, you are exerting some force here. So suppose if this is a force which is exerted externally, the object, that is a ball which is present over here, starts to move. But at some particular point it stops. This is the first side of the assumption. And this is the second side of the assumptions. That is observation C here. external force of this object is allowed to move. So object is said to be in motion, and somewhere at some particular point the object is said to stop, and the object is said to stop at some particular point, and that is due to some force called as friction. That is due to a force which is called as friction. Okay, so the force which is applied externally to the object starts moving. Gaining that force, the object is said to be moved, and at some point of time the object is said to stop. That is due to the opposite force which is acting. The opposition force is said to be a friction. It is a friction. It is said to be a resistive force, the one which resists the motion. So here, due to the opposite force which is acting upon the object comes to the state of rest at certain interval of time, wherein he just explained only one part. That is, he had only one part of the view, whereas the other part of the view was not explained. And that was due to friction, that is resistivity force which is acting on the object. Having the concept of Aristotle, what did Newton do? Newton gained this concept of external force which is required to keep the body in motion and just modified it, and the discussion was like, and he just modified it. Coming to Aristotle's view, that is, he considered motion of objects on an inclined plane, the plane which is slope, which is having a slope, such kind of a plane is known as inclined plane. Okay, so now, for example, first inclined plane he studied about, that is, an object is moving downwards. So what happens when it moves downwards in an inclined plane to the object? So the velocity increases, since the acceleration due to gravity is acting vertically downwards. When the object is allowed to move, what happens to the object? It also gains its velocity, and the acceleration is increased. If the velocity increases, the acceleration increases. So you can say that it is getting accelerated, or it is having an increased acceleration, because the velocity of the object downwards, it increases. So now, next is moving up. The object is moving up of this inclined plane. So what happens to the object when it moves up? So it gets retarded. That is, the acceleration due to gravity is acting downwards. So here the object is moving upwards. So there is negative acceleration. So this negative acceleration, that is decrease in velocity. When the object is moving upwards and your gravity is acting downwards, there is decrease in velocity for this object. When there is decrease in velocity for this object, you can tell that it is having negative acceleration. So negative acceleration is called as deceleration, or it can also called as retardation. So the object is getting retarded. Where in the case of second image. Now, third one, that is motion on a horizontal plane. So, if the plane is horizontal, what happens to the motion of the object? It is given an external push, that is, external agent is required for a body to be in motion. No, so you are just giving an external agency. And what is that external agent which you are giving? That is the force applied on the object. So, what happens to the object? The object keeps on moving continuously, but at some point of time, the object comes to the state of rest. Why is that? That is due to a friction. That is due to a friction. That is a resistive force which is acting on the body which is in motion. So that resistive force will act opposite direction. Since it is acting in opposite direction, the body comes to the state of rest. He also saw, by keeping the other set of experiments, that is, he just used a bent plane wherein the plane was a smooth surface, where the object was allowed to start from the initial point and it was allowed to move. So what happened in the second case, when the object was allowed to move on a plane, that is a smooth surface, the object moved to the same heights, but it traveled longer distance. distance. In the second case, the object gained the same height as that of the initial height. Initial as well as final position both are at the same height, but it occupied the longer distance. It took longer distance to reach the same height as that of the initial height. And in third case, one side it is inclined and the other side it is just a plain surface. So it's a horizontal surface wherein object was allowed to move and the object came into state of rest at certain point of time because of the friction which is exerted. Suppose if you consider the friction is not exerted, that there is no friction on the floor or on the plane, what would happen? The body or the object would continuously move throughout to an infinite distance. Having these concepts, Newton gave the law of inertia. As you can see in this image, you can see that an object or a body is at state of rest. So an object is moving, that is, a person is standing in a bus and bus is said to be moving. Similarly, even body, that is a human or a person, is said to be moving along with the bus. Suddenly the bus exerts brakes. What happens to the body? The body which is at state of rest or at the uniform motion along with the bus, suddenly when the body comes to the state of rest, it exerts some force and a person will fall down. Okay, similar way that you can see the image over here. He is using a cell phone without holding any rods over here. So what happens all of a sudden? The bus exerts brake. So as soon as the brake is exerted, this is the initial position of a human. He comes to the final stage, that is, he will be fallen down. Okay, this is the concept of law of inertia and it is very easy and important. So law of inertia, this is very much important and it is said that every body remains at the state of rest or it will be in uniform motion unless an external force is compelled on it. See, either a body will be in the state of rest. Now suppose you people are standing. You will be at the state of rest unless an external force is pushing you. Some of your friend will come and just push you. So you'll fall down. At that time you can say that you're not in a rest position. You'll be fallen down. So your position is changed. So you can say that every body will be at the state of rest or in the uniform motion. Either you will be moving in equal interval of time, that is sweeping equal distance in equal interval of time. You will be in a uniform motion. Either of the two. Either you will be in rest position or you will be in uniform motion. Okay. So now if suppose a vehicle is coming and now if suppose one of your friend is coming and just pushing you, what happens to your state of rest? It changes. And what happens to, if it is in case of uniform motion, what happens to the uniform motion? That also changes. So the state of rest also changes, uniform motion also changes. So every body is said to be in the state of rest or in the uniform motion unless an external force is compelled on it. That is all about your law of inertia. So what does your law of inertia says? That is, every body continues to be in the state of rest or of the uniform motion until and unless an external force is compelled on it. That is all about your law of inertia. In today's class, we studied how exactly the objects have motion. So external agency is required for the object to produce motion. And after that, we studied Aristotle fallacy. What was Aristotle's view on the motion? That is, he told that external agency is required for the object to have the uniform motion. That was his concept. And having that, he gave out few experiments using inclined planes. Having that concept, Newton's opted for his concept and he gave out law of inertia, out of which the law of inertia is explained to you in a simpler image as an example. So I hope you all are clear with today's session of Introduction to Law of Motion. Let us all meet in our next class. Until then, have a good day.